Archangel Michael says, something deep inside this person shattered the moment you stopped chasing them. They never thought you'd walk away. They believed you'd always be the one begging for love, clinging for attention, tolerating the disrespect. But you shocked them with silence. You answered arrogance with peace. And that broke the foundation of their ego like glass under pressure. They expected you to fight for their attention. Instead, you chose yourself. And that choice destroyed their illusion of control. Now they're sitting in a space that feels unfamiliar. Not because you're gone, but because they no longer recognize who they are without your validation. They didn't lose your presence. They lost the power they once held over your peace. Type Amen to get blessing 333. Their collapse wasn't physical. It happened inside, where the world can't see but the spirit can't ignore. Their chest is heavy, not from heartbreak, but from shame. They used to think they were untouchable, that your love was guaranteed. But the moment you stopped showing up, their soul began to tremble. They never prepared for this silence. They never imagined a day where you'd turn your back and mean it. Now every quiet second feels like thunder echoing through their pride. They look at themselves and feel smaller now. Not because you hurt them, but because they finally saw the damage they caused. And in that reflection, their ego began to sink. Type Amen to get blessing 511. Archangel Michael says, you were never trying to destroy them. You were just trying to save yourself. And in doing so, you became a mirror they couldn't run from anymore. They remember the last conversation. They play it over and over, trying to find a way to twist the blame. But nothing they tell themselves works now, because your silence has become louder than their excuses. They lost the game they never knew they were playing. You weren't keeping score, but you were keeping your soul safe. And the moment you said, enough, the scoreboard reset in heaven. You didn't just break their ego. You awakened their emptiness. And now they have to sit with the version of themselves they created while pushing you away. Type Amen to get blessing 747. They scroll through old photos of you now, zooming in, not to see your smile, but to feel what it felt like when you used to see them. They miss being admired, desired, chosen without having to earn it. But they didn't know how to value that kind of love, so they mistook it for weakness. And when you left, they realized it was their strength all along. They haven't told anyone yet, not their friends, not their family. Because how do you confess you lost someone not because they stopped loving, but because you never truly appreciated? Every message you haven't sent is another brick weighing on their chest. Every time you don't react, they feel the consequences of their decisions. Your peace is punishing their pride more than any argument ever could. Type Amen to get blessing 933. They thought you needed closure, but you chose growth, and that ruined every narrative they rehearsed in their mind. They planned to circle back eventually, to reach out when the tension faded, but your evolution has now made them realize they may never get the chance. Your glow has changed. You look stronger, lighter, more divine. They stalk in silence now, trying to decipher how you healed without them. What they don't know is, it wasn't easy. You bled in silence, cried in secret, but when you chose peace, heaven responded. Type Amen to get blessing 1020. They feel like they're suffocating under the weight of their own pride. You gave them space, not as punishment, but as protection. And now that space feels like a prison. They assumed you would beg. But you built. They thought you'd crumble. But instead, you created a new version of yourself. They wonder who you talk to now. Who holds your heart. Who hears your laughter that used to belong to them. And the unknown is eating them alive. Not because you belong to someone else, but because you no longer belong to them. That is a pain their ego was never built to endure. Type Amen to get blessing 1188. Archangel Michael says, don't return just because they collapsed. Their healing must come from truth, not from the comfort of your presence. You were the lesson wrapped in loyalty, and they must now unwrap the consequences. They miss the one who stayed through storms, the one who defended them in rooms they didn't deserve to be mentioned in. But you finally learned that loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself. Now they talk to the air as if it can carry their regret to you. They whisper, "I'm sorry," without ever saying it to your face. And those apologies fall to the floor like broken glass. They want to reach out, but their pride still wrestles with their pain. And each day they don't, their heart grows heavier, because they know deep down, you are no longer waiting. Type Amen to get blessing 1313. They collapsed emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Their ego was the only thing protecting them from the truth of what they lost. And now that it's gone, they sit face to face with the fact, you were real. They used to see themselves as the prize. But now they're realizing, you were the rare gem all along. A soul that chose to stay when others would have run. You didn't leave with a storm. You left like sunrise, quiet, powerful, undeniable. And since that moment, nothing in their life has felt the same. They wake up hoping to see your name on their screen. But it never comes. Because you've finally learned that absence is also a form of love, to yourself. Type Amen to get blessing 1440. They wear a mask now. Laughing in public, showing strength online, pretending they're unaffected. But behind closed doors, they crumble every time they hear your name. They never expected to miss the way you corrected them gently. They underestimated the power of your silence. Now, that silence has become their greatest teacher. You weren't loud when you left. You just stopped explaining. And that subtle exit broke the very core of their arrogance. Now they wonder how someone they took for granted could suddenly feel so out of reach. And that thought alone is enough to bring them to their knees. Their ego can't breathe in the space where your peace now lives. Type Amen to get blessing 1577. They see your glow and it haunts them. It's not just the physical. It's the peace that radiates from your eyes, the peace they never could give. They remember how they tried to play power games, withholding love, delaying responses, testing your loyalty. Now they realize all they did was push away the one person who loved them unconditionally. You broke their ego by showing them you didn't need to prove your worth. You let your absence do what your words never could. And now that absence is louder than anything they've ever known. Archangel Michael says, their collapse wasn't punishment. It was divine alignment. Because sometimes ego has to die for the soul to awaken. Type Amen to get blessing 1660. They now understand what you meant when you said, I just want peace. Back then, they mocked that simplicity. Now they crave it, and realize it was you who brought it. They see you building, healing, becoming more than they ever imagined. They thought you'd be stuck in sorrow, but you used your heartbreak as fuel, and that makes them feel smaller than ever before. They scroll through old messages, wishing they could undo the damage. But the timeline can't be reversed, because once ego collapses, regret becomes the echo in every memory. Type Amen to get blessing 1791. They hear your name in places they didn't expect. Others mention you with respect now, and they can't help but flinch, realizing they lost a treasure while searching for stones. Even strangers seem to recognize your glow, and that's what terrifies them the most. That someone else may now be cherishing the very heart they rejected. You're not bitter. You're better. You grew in the garden they thought would bury you. They hoped time would make you reach out again. But instead, time healed you. And now they're the one waiting for a text that will never arrive. Type Amen to get blessing 1880. Archangel Michael says, do not feel guilty for the collapse of their ego. You didn't destroy them, you gave them a mirror. And they broke at the sight of their own reflection. They were so used to control, they forgot how it feels to earn love. And when you walked away, they realized love cannot be forced, it must be respected. Now they're learning that lesson through pain. The strength you showed by letting go is now the storm inside their mind. They thought silence was weakness. Now it's the thunder that keeps them awake at night. You once begged for communication. Now they beg the universe for a second chance. But the door they walked out of was also the door they sealed behind them. Type Amen to get blessing 1999. They thought they could return whenever they wanted. They believed your heart was an open gate with no lock. But now, they stand on the outside, uninvited, uncertain, undone. The tables have turned, not out of revenge but through growth. You didn't plan to shift the energy. You simply chose peace over pride. Their ego had fed them lies, told them you'd never stop needing them. But your silence became the evidence that their control had expired. They refresh your profile like a ritual, looking for a crack in your armor. But all they see is light, pure, healed, radiant light. Type Amen to get blessing 2111. They are collapsing behind smiles, crumbling beneath pride that's now too heavy to carry. And the worst part is, they did it to themselves. Their friends ask what happened. They shrug it off. They don't dare admit that your strength is what shattered them. Archangel Michael says, the collapse of their ego was necessary. Because ego builds walls, not bridges. And now, in your absence, they realize they burned the only bridge that led to love. They wish they could go back and choose differently. But life does not offer rewinds. It offers consequences, and right now, they are living in one. Type Amen to get blessing 2222. They try to find pieces of you in others, but nothing compares. No one sees them the way you did. They laugh with others, but it's empty. They flirt, but it's forced. Because no one else speaks to their soul the way your silence still does. They remember how they used to speak to you carelessly. Now they speak about you with reverence. And even that feels like too little, too late. You were their safest place. And now they are lost in a maze of their own making. A maze built from pride, dishonesty, and false power. Type Amen to get blessing 2383. They stare at the last message you sent before going quiet. They try to read between the lines. But what haunts them most is that your love was never complicated. You just needed honesty, loyalty, consistency. 3 things their ego told them they didn't need to give. Now those same 3 things echo like thunder inside their chest. They wonder if someone else is now receiving the simplicity they took for granted. Archangel Michael says, ego always collapses before the soul can evolve. And right now, their soul is under reconstruction. But without you, it feels like building with broken bricks. Type Amen to get blessing 2501. They still think about the look in your eyes when you said goodbye. There was sadness. But there was also strength. You didn't beg. You didn't scream. You just walked away. That walk became their downfall. Not because you left them, but because you took your light with you. Now they understand you weren't trying to win. You were trying to survive. And in choosing yourself, you broke the illusion they built around their worth. Type Amen to get blessing 2660. They feel your absence in their routine, in their coffee, in the way the sun rises without your good morning. Their world hasn't been the same. They thought you'd fade, but instead, you became the echo in every quiet moment. They hear your laughter in songs. They see your reflection in strangers. And every time, their heart clenches with a pain that can't be medicated. Their ego told them they could live without you. But now, their spirit knows better. And it's collapsing under the weight of what was lost. Type Amen to get blessing 2777. Archangel Michael says, your value was never tied to their recognition. It was tied to your resilience. And now, that resilience is becoming their biggest lesson. Let them collapse. Let them feel what it means to lose someone divine. Because only in the ruin will their rebirth begin. You don't need revenge. Your growth is justice. Your glow is the response. And while they try to gather their broken pride, you'll be building your future, stronger, wiser, unshakable. Because your peace is no longer for sale. Type Amen to get blessing 2888. They still hope for a text from you, a chance, a crack, a return. But deep down, they know, that chapter is sealed, not out of hate, but because love without respect becomes poison. And you chose healing over history. They may never say it out loud, but they collapsed the day you stopped trying. And their ego will never forget the sound of your silence. You were their mirror, their light, their truth. And in losing you, they met themselves. Broken, hollow, real. Type Amen to get blessing 3000. They don't post as much anymore. Not because they're busy, but because the joy they once faked now feels too heavy to pretend. Their smile in photos is edited. Their captions sound strong but lack soul. Because every post is a cry for the version of themselves that once felt whole, with you. They never thought your absence would echo so long. But it does. Everywhere. In everything. Even food tastes different. Songs feel hollow. And the places they once loved visiting now bring quiet pain. Type Amen to get blessing 3111. You were more than love. You were healing, energy, and truth. Now that you're gone, they've realized what it means to have lost a soul connection. They've tried to reach for distractions, people, projects, parties, But nothing silences the storm you left in their mind. They still dream of you. Not just the good moments, but the ones where they wish they had listened. Those dreams wake them up drenched in sweat and sorrow. Their ego told them you were replaceable. But now they know, your kind of love doesn't visit twice. It's once in a lifetime. And they wasted it. Type Amen to get blessing 3244. Archangel Michael says, do not dim your light for their comfort. They had the chance to grow beside you. Now they must grow in your absence. Your power wasn't just in your words. It was in your presence. The calm you carried, the wisdom you delivered without ever raising your voice. You were not perfect, but you were pure. And their ego couldn't comprehend such softness without control. Now, in your silence, they're learning the meaning of sacred loss. You are not required to respond. Your growth speaks louder than anything you could type. And heaven is proud of how far you've come. Type Amen to get blessing 3360. They wanted you to chase. You chose to heal. They expected you to fold. You flourished instead. Now you are no longer the person who once cried at midnight. You are evolving. And that evolution has become their daily reminder of what they mishandled. Your name still lives in their mind. Not as a memory, but as a lesson. A lesson their future self will never forget. People around them are starting to notice their shift. Less pride, more pain. Less noise, more silence. They are collapsing, still, one emotion at a time. And all of it began the moment you said, no more. Type Amen to get blessing 3499. You were the mirror that showed them who they could have become. But their ego chose to reject the reflection. And now, that mirror has cracked. And all they see is what they refuse to fix. You didn't break them. Their pride did. You only revealed the truth. Their world feels smaller now. Not because you took space, but because your presence was the space. And now, every corner feels colder. Archangel Michael says, your peace is divine protection. Never return to what heaven already freed you from. You didn't lose them, they lost access to your soul. Type Amen to get blessing 3666. They are learning now that silence carries power. That peace can pierce deeper than anger. And absence can speak louder than closure. You were a soft place in a loud world. A calm in their chaos. But they tried to own what was meant to be honored. Now you are gone, and they are left with echoes. Not of your voice, but of the love they thought would never walk away. And those echoes are haunting them more than they'll ever admit. They still hope you'll reach out, but their pride won't let them say it. So they stay stuck in a loop, ego against emotion. Regret against silence. Type Amen to get blessing 3790. Let this be your confirmation. You were never too much. You were simply too real for a heart that wasn't ready. Their collapse was inevitable, because anything not rooted in truth must fall. And their ego was built on illusion. Your love was divine. And now, that love has returned to its source, you. Because what you gave freely, they mishandled. Now heaven is returning it multiplied. You will love again. You will be seen, held, and chosen fully. And this time, ego will not be part of the story. Type Amen to get blessing 3902. Archangel Michael says, your reward is already in motion. Every tear you cried in silence was counted. Every step you took in dignity is now opening doors. You broke the cycle. You shattered the illusion. And in doing so, you freed both yourself and them. They'll never forget you. Not in this life. Not in the next. Because people never forget the one who loved them with truth. Let them rebuild now. Let them find themselves in the ashes of their ego. Because your love was not destruction, it was divine awakening. Type Amen to get blessing 4000.